Buddy had always walked the world alone. The streets were his home, and the cold pavement told the story of his struggle. His coat was matted from rain and mud, his ribs showing through his thin frame. Yet, his eyes, sharp, amber orbs, held a quiet strength. Each discarded meal, each narrow escape from danger, was a testament to his will to survive. But beneath that toughness lay something fragile, a yearning for the warmth he'd never known. Every bark he heard in the distance, every fleeting glimpse of laughter, reminded him of what he lacked: companionship, belonging, love. The neighborhood seemed like another world to Buddy. From the shadows, he watched the neat rows of houses with their glowing windows and trimmed lawns. His favorite spot was under the large oak tree across from the house with the softest lights. Inside, the young family moved like a portrait of warmth. A kind-faced man, a gentle woman, and their baby, Lila. Buddy's ears twitched as he observed their routines, his curiosity growing with each passing day. He felt drawn to their laughter, their shared moments. But he remained distant, a silent watcher from the other side of their world. Night after night, Buddy returned to the same spot, his gaze fixed on the family through the living room window. He saw the father cradling baby Lila, his deep voice carrying faint melodies. The mother would sit beside them, her hand resting lightly on the man's arm, a picture of unity. Buddy's chest tightened with a feeling he couldn't understand. Was it jealousy? Hope? The ache of longing? He didn't know. He only knew that their laughter stirred something deep within him, something that whispered of a life he might have had, if only the world had been kinder. It was a scent that snapped Buddy from his thoughts one quiet night. Acrid and sharp, it cut through the crisp air like a warning. Smoke. His ears perked, his nose twitching. Across the street, the family's home stood eerily still, but the faintest tendrils of smoke escaped the roofline. Buddy's body tensed. Something was wrong. His instincts screamed at him to leave, to seek safety. Yet, his eyes remained fixed on the house. A strange pull, stronger than fear, rooted him in place. The family inside, especially the tiny life he'd watched so closely, needed help. He couldn't look away. Buddy's paws shuffled against the dirt as he hesitated. The flames were spreading, licking at the edges of the windows. His heart pounded. He was a stray, an outsider, it wasn't his fight. But then he thought of Lila's small face, her laughter that had once reached him even in his darkest moments. He couldn't turn his back. Fear clung to him like a second skin as he darted toward the house, his slender frame slipping through the chaos. His resolve was clear now. Whatever it took, he would save her. For the first time, Buddy's world was about more than survival. The heat hit Buddy like a wave, suffocating and searing. The crackle of burning would fill the air, a deafening reminder of the danger he'd chosen to face. He darted through the smoke-filled rooms, his keen senses guiding him through the haze. Each step felt heavier, the fire's roar growing louder. He scanned the space frantically, his mind racing. Where was she? His breath came in short, sharp bursts as he pushed onward, ignoring the growing pain in his paws. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for her life, and he wouldn't give up. A faint, desperate cry pierced through the chaos, sharp and clear despite the roar of the fire. Lila. Buddy's ears twitched, his body propelling him toward the sound. The nursery door was ajar, smoke pouring from the cracks. With a surge of adrenaline, he pushed through, his eyes locking on the crib. There she was, her small form barely visible amidst the thick, choking smoke. Her cries were frantic, full of fear. Buddy's instincts took over. He leapt forward, his jaws gently closing around the blanket that swaddled her. This was his moment. He would not fail her. Lila's weight was light, yet every step felt like a mountain. The fire seemed alive, blocking every path with walls of heat. Buddy's body screamed for him to stop, but he pressed on, his grip on the baby firm yet careful. The flames clawed at him, their heat unrelenting, but the sound of Lila's faint cries kept him moving. He found an opening, a narrow hallway that led toward the front door. It was his only chance. With a final burst of strength, Buddy surged forward, his heart pounding with a single thought. They had to make it out alive. The fire roared, an all-consuming beast that clawed at the edges of Buddy's world. His fur singed as the heat wrapped around him, oppressive and relentless. The stench of smoke filled his nostrils, choking him as his paws carried him through the inferno. But Buddy's instincts were stronger than the flames. He had to find her. The cries were faint, but they were there, small, desperate sounds that cut through the roar of the fire like a beacon. Buddy's heart beat faster with each step, his body trembling under the weight of exhaustion. His lungs screamed for air, but he fought through the suffocating smoke, each stride driven by a singular purpose. His amber eyes, wide with determination, flicked across the room as flames danced around him, their orange tongues reaching for him, threatening to devour him. But he couldn't stop, not now. Lila needed him. The smoke and fear faded behind him as he focused only on her, guiding himself by the sound of her cries. Buddy's muscles burned with fatigue, his paws slipping against the floor as he neared the exit. The ceiling above groaned ominously, creaking like an old wooden ship, and then it collapsed. Embers and ash rained down, filling the air with stinging heat. Panic surged in Buddy's chest, but he didn't hesitate. His survival instincts kicked in as he weaved through the falling debris, his body moving with the precision of a seasoned survivor. The door was just ahead, his salvation, and with one last push he surged forward. His paws found the coolness of the grass as the house behind him exploded in a shower of sparks. He laid Lila gently on the ground, her small body still trembling from the ordeal. She let out a soft cry, but Buddy could feel the relief that washed over him. They had made it out. They were safe. And yet, his body trembled, the weight of the escape settling in his bones. The once quiet street was now a scene of chaos and disbelief. The fire truck sirens had faded, but the flames still flickered in the background, casting an eerie glow on the faces of the gathered neighbors. They stood there wide-eyed, their gazes fixed on the stray dog that had just emerged from the burning house. Buddy, ragged and covered in soot, stood with Lila in his mouth. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, their astonishment palpable. The firefighters paused, their jaws slack as they stared at Buddy, the dog who had done the unthinkable. They had arrived to save, but it was this stray dog who had saved them all. As the family rushed to Lila's side, their tearful cries filled the air, a mixture of relief and gratitude. But amidst the chaos, Buddy stood still, his amber eyes watching as his world began to shift. For the first time, he didn't feel like just another stray. He was something more. James approached Buddy slowly, the emotions crashing over him like the waves in a storm. His eyes were filled with something new: respect, gratitude, and awe. Kneeling before Buddy, he extended a trembling hand, placing it gently on the dog's head. Buddy's eyes closed for a moment, as if feeling the weight of the man's touch, understanding the depth of his gratitude. James's voice was thick with emotion as he whispered words Buddy couldn't understand, but the sentiment was clear. For the first time in his life, Buddy felt seen. Not as a stray, not as an outsider, but as a hero. James's hand stayed on Buddy's head, a gesture of acceptance and thankfulness. For the first time, Buddy felt truly connected to another. There was no suspicion or disdain in James's touch, only love, pure and unspoken. And Buddy knew that, for the first time, he had found something he had long been searching for. Someone who saw him for who he truly was. Buddy's name was on everyone's lips. The stray dog who had braved the flames to save Lila. The dog who had been nothing but a shadow in the neighborhood. Now a hero. But even in the glow of his newfound fame, Buddy was still a stray. The fleeting admiration of the neighbors felt hollow. His paws still wandered the streets, each step echoing a loneliness that no amount of praise could fill. The warmth of the family's home called to him, but he couldn't cross that invisible line that separated him from them. He had become part of their story, but they had not yet become part of his. Each night, he would find himself lingering by their window, watching them laugh and play, the warmth of their love radiating through the glass. But he stayed outside, unable to enter their world. He was a hero, yes, but he was still a stray, and that thought hung around him like an unshakable shadow. James couldn't forget Buddy. Every time he passed the spot where Buddy had saved Lila, the memory of the dog's bravery resurfaced. James wanted to bring Buddy into their home, to give him a family, to give him the love he deserved. But Megan had her reservations. Their life was already a delicate balance with Lila, and bringing in a stray dog, one with no training, no history, felt like too much. He deserves better, James would argue, his voice filled with conviction. But Megan's doubts remained. What if Buddy's past made him too unpredictable? What if his presence disrupted the harmony they had worked so hard to build? Their conversations, though quiet, were charged with tension. It was clear that both wanted what was best for Buddy, but they didn't agree on what that was. James believed Buddy had earned a place in their home, but Megan wasn't sure. Each conversation ended in silence, neither of them wanting to make the final decision. The decision to adopt Buddy was one they would have to make together, and the weight of that decision pressed down on both of them. Buddy had become the talk of the town, the stray dog who had saved a child from a burning house. Children would point him out, their faces lighting up with admiration as he passed. Strangers offered him food, some even trying to pet him, but none of it filled the emptiness inside him. His heroism hadn't changed the fact that he was still alone. Each night, he found himself returning to the family's house, lurking in the shadows. He watched through the window as Lila played, her giggles rising in the night air like music. He remembered the warmth of her small body against his as he carried her to safety, and he longed to be a part of that warmth again. But each time he stood at the edge of their yard, doubt crept in. He had saved her, yes, but could he be a part of her world? Could he truly belong in their home? The streets were familiar, but they were cold. The family's house was warm, but it felt like a place where he could never fully be. The longing in his heart grew with each passing day. It was Lila who noticed Buddy first. One sunny afternoon, as she sat in the yard, her tiny hand reached through the fence, her giggles breaking the silence of the street. Buddy hesitated for only a moment before inching closer. Her innocence called to him, and before he knew it, his head was nuzzling into her outstretched hand. The touch was gentle, untainted by fear or judgment. It was a simple gesture, but to Buddy, it meant everything. Her fingers brushed against his fur. A silent promise passed between them. Days turned into weeks, and Lila's laughter became Buddy's anchor. Every time he saw her, the pain of his past seemed to fade just a little bit more. Lila's presence was healing in a way Buddy couldn't fully understand, but he felt it deep within his bones. They shared a bond, one that went beyond words, one that was built on trust and love. And with each passing day, Buddy grew more certain that this tiny human was the reason he had braved the fire in the first place. At first, Megan had been cautious, watching from the kitchen window as Buddy and Lila played in the yard. It was easy to see Buddy's affection for Lila, how he would lay beside her, his head resting protectively on her lap. But Megan's heart still clenched with worry. There were the little messes, tipped over trash cans, paw prints on the floor, and Megan couldn't help but wonder if Buddy's presence would upset the fragile balance they had worked so hard to maintain. But as the days turned into weeks, something began to shift. She saw the gentleness in Buddy's movements, the way he seemed to understand Lila's every need. She saw the way he patiently waited for Lila to finish playing before he would gently nudge her, asking for attention. Buddy wasn't perfect, but he was trying. And when Megan saw Lila fall asleep with her hand resting on Buddy's back, a warmth spread through her heart. In that moment, she realized that Buddy was more than just a stray dog. He was part of their family. Buddy's past was never far from the surface. His instincts, honed by years on the streets, often led him to scavenge through the kitchen, sniffing around for scraps. Sometimes, a growl would escape his throat when an unfamiliar face approached. He couldn't help it. These were the habits of a stray, the defense mechanisms he had developed over time. The family tried to understand, but the behavior was jarring. Megan would sigh in frustration when Buddy knocked over the trash can, and James would gently remind her, "He's been through so much," but even he had moments of doubt. Late at night, Buddy would pace the house, his body tense, as though waiting for something, anything, that might signal danger. Megan would sometimes find him staring out the window, his amber eyes filled with a sadness she couldn't quite place. The fear and uncertainty that Buddy carried from his past were as much a part of him as the loyalty he showed them. James was patient, understanding that Buddy wasn't just a dog. He was a survivor, and one stormy night, Lila woke with a cry that echoed through the house. Nothing could soothe her, not Megan's lullabies or James's comforting arms. But when Buddy appeared at her bedside, everything changed. He rested his head near hers, his presence calm and steady. Slowly, her cries turned to soft whimpers, then quiet breaths. The family watched in amazement as the connection between them deepened, a bond that seemed almost otherworldly. As James tucked Lila into bed, his eyes caught something strange. A faint glow surrounded Buddy, a soft, pulsing light that seemed to radiate from within him. It wasn't harsh or bright, but comforting, like the warmth of a campfire. James blinked, unsure if he was imagining it. But as Lila's breathing slowed, the glow faded, leaving behind a sense of peace. It was as if Buddy carried something beyond understanding, a magic born of love and loyalty. The sky darkened with an unsettling urgency, thick clouds churning as if the heavens themselves were in turmoil. Wind whipped through the neighborhood, rattling windows and bending trees. Soon, the first drops of rain fell, hesitant at first, then relentless. The streets transformed into rushing rivers, the floodwaters creeping higher with each passing minute. Animals scurried to safety, their instincts warning them of the impending danger. In the distance, a faint rumble grew into a deafening roar as the storm unleashed its fury. Inside the house, the family's initial calm had dissolved into panic. The floodwaters rose swiftly, lapping at the edges of their porch. The parents worked frantically to secure their home, but the water was relentless, seeping through every crevice. James tried to navigate the rising tide, but his heart sank as he realized Lila was trapped in her nursery, her tiny cries muffled by the chaos outside. The rising waters isolated her room, turning it into a precarious island of safety, rapidly shrinking with every surge. Desperation clawed at them as they realized they couldn't reach her. Buddy's ears perked up, his body stiff with alertness as he sensed the distress in the air. The storm's cacophony didn't frighten him. What terrified him was the sound of Lila's cries, faint but piercing in their urgency. Every instinct screamed at him to act. Memories of the fire surged in his mind, a reminder of the risks he had faced before. He was no stranger to fear, but the bond he shared with Lila burned brighter than any hesitation. He sprinted toward the house, his paws splashing against the cold water. The surge of the flood pushed back against him, but Buddy pressed on, determined to reach her. The water swirled around him, a chaotic force that threatened to sweep him away with every step. Buddy's powerful legs churned through the current, his instincts guiding him as debris floated past in the torrent. He reached the door, his weight pressing against it until it gave way. Inside, the water was already knee-deep, the air thick with tension. Buddy's nose twitched as he searched for Lila, her scent faint but unmistakable. Climbing onto floating furniture and bracing himself against the shifting currents, he made his way to the nursery. When he found her, clinging to her crib, her tiny face streaked with tears, a surge of determination took hold. Buddy nudged her gently, his movements steady and deliberate, as if assuring her that she wasn't alone. As Buddy positioned himself to carry Lila, something extraordinary began to happen. The faint glow that had appeared before now radiated brighter, its warmth pushing back against the cold waters. The light surrounded them both, creating a barrier that seemed to defy the storm's wrath. The swirling water slowed as it reached the edge of the glow, diverted by an unseen force. Buddy's amber eyes reflected the light, his movements purposeful and sure as he cradled Lila in his protective aura. Buddy navigated the treacherous path back through the house, his glowing presence illuminating the way. The storm raged on, but within the sphere of light, there was peace. Each step felt like a triumph, the glow acting as both a shield and a guide. The water seemed to part before him, and though the storm howled, its fury couldn't touch them. As Buddy emerged from the house, the glow dimmed slightly but remained steady enough to light their way to safety. Lila's cries softened, her tiny hands clutching Buddy's fur as if she, too, trusted in his extraordinary gift. The neighbors, huddled together on higher ground, watched in stunned silence as Buddy stepped into view. The faint glow surrounding him was unmistakable, even through the rain-soaked chaos. James and Megan ran to meet him, their expressions shifting from terror to awe. They could hardly believe what they were seeing. The stray dog they had once hesitated to trust had become their savior. The glow faded as Buddy collapsed onto the wet ground, exhausted but triumphant, with Lila nestled safely beside him. The family gathered around Buddy and Lila, shielding them from the rain with their trembling hands. Megan's heart swelled as she looked at Buddy, his fur matted and soaked but his eyes still filled with quiet determination. She knelt beside him, gently stroking his head as James scooped Lila into his arms. The neighbors murmured among themselves, their awe giving way to applause as they recognized Buddy's heroism. In that moment, Buddy wasn't just a stray. He was their hero, a symbol of courage and loyalty. For Megan, the storm washed away every doubt she had held about Buddy. She saw him now for what he truly was, not a burden, but a blessing. His unyielding loyalty, his courage in the face of danger, and the mysterious light that seemed to emanate from his very soul were undeniable. She reached out, her touch soft and full of gratitude. "You're part of this family," her heart whispered silently, a promise she would honor. Buddy looked up at her, his amber eyes reflecting her warmth. The storm passed, leaving behind a quiet stillness that felt almost sacred. The family stood together, Buddy now firmly in their embrace. The house bore the marks of the storm's wrath, but their hearts felt renewed, stronger than ever. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, Buddy stretched, his weariness fading as he basked in the warmth. He was no longer a stray, no longer an outsider. For the first time in his life, Buddy had a home, and with it, a family that loved him unconditionally. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows as Buddy stretched out in his new bed, a cozy space the family had lovingly prepared for him. No longer was he a stray searching for scraps or a safe place to rest. Now, he had a warm home, his name engraved on a shiny new tag hanging from a sturdy collar. He roamed the house freely, his paws tapping lightly against the wooden floors, a sound that filled the home with a comforting rhythm. For Buddy, the days of uncertainty were behind him. Mealtimes brought more than just sustenance. They were moments of belonging, of being part of a family. Lila's laughter echoed through the halls, her small hands reaching out to pat Buddy's fur, her giggles a melody of pure joy. Every moment affirmed what Buddy had fought so hard for, a place where he truly belonged. The bond between Lila and Buddy deepened with each passing day. Where Lila went, Buddy followed, his amber eyes watching over her with unwavering devotion. Their connection was one of quiet understanding, built on trust and love. Lila would sit beside Buddy, her tiny fingers threading through his soft fur, while Buddy remained still and patient, as though he knew she needed him just as much as he needed her. When Lila stumbled during her first steps, it was Buddy who steadied her, his presence a gentle reassurance. At night, he lay beside her crib, his steady breathing a lullaby that soothed her restless dreams. To Lila, Buddy wasn't just a dog. He was her protector, her confidant, her best friend. Their bond became a symbol of the family's transformation, a reminder of how love could bridge even the unlikeliest of gaps. Buddy's story didn't just change his life. It sparked a change in others. Inspired by his journey, the family began volunteering at a local animal shelter. James often recounted Buddy's heroics, sharing how a stray dog had saved their family and taught them the true meaning of loyalty and love. Megan, who had once hesitated to take Buddy in, now found herself advocating for stray animals, her perspective forever changed by his presence. The family spent weekends helping other strays find their own happy endings, Lila toddling around with Buddy close behind. The shelter staff marveled at Buddy's calming effect on frightened animals, his quiet strength offering them comfort. Buddy became a symbol of hope, his story proving that even the most overlooked souls could shine brilliantly when given a chance. Though the storm had passed, the glow that had once surrounded Buddy never truly disappeared. It returned during quiet moments. When Lila was ill, the faint light would appear, cradling her in its warmth. When the family faced difficult days, Buddy's glow seemed to brighten their spirits, offering a sense of calm and reassurance. The family no longer questioned the glow. It was simply part of who Buddy was. They came to see it as a reflection of his heart, his unwavering love radiating in a way that words could never capture. In Buddy, they saw more than a dog, they saw magic. To the family, Buddy was more than a pet, he was a guardian. His presence transformed their lives, teaching them to cherish every moment and find strength in the bonds they shared. Buddy's watchful eyes seemed to understand more than most, his actions always timely, as though he could sense their unspoken needs. The family often reflected on how Buddy had arrived in their lives when they needed him most. He wasn't just a stray they had saved. He was a protector who had saved them in ways they never imagined. In their hearts, Buddy was their guardian angel in disguise. As they sat together one evening, the family marveled at how far Buddy had come. From a stray navigating a harsh world to a cherished member of their home, his journey was one of transformation. Their love had given Buddy a second chance, but in truth, he had given them so much more. A reminder of the power of compassion and the profound impact of unconditional love. Buddy's story stood as a testament to the extraordinary gifts animals bring into our lives. His courage, loyalty, and quiet magic had reshaped their world, proving that second chances could lead to something truly remarkable. For the family, Buddy was more than just a pet. He was a living reminder of the beauty of kindness and the life-changing potential of giving and receiving love. As Buddy curled up at Lila's feet, the family knew their lives had been forever touched by the paw prints of a once-lost dog who had found his way home. Join us in celebrating the power of love and second chances. Buddy's journey reminds us that every animal deserves a forever home. Subscribe for more heartwarming tales, and share the story to inspire others to open their hearts to a stray. Together, we can create stories of hope and transformation.